Got a couple things I want to talk about, but in this video, I'm just going to talk about one. We've got Brett Fikowski back in the limelight, making a media tour. He went on the Froning podcast, the Mayhem podcast. He was also on Training Think Tank in their podcast. Now, there are some specific things that are very foundational to what he's looking to do that he mentions that I think are extremely flawed. It kind of goes to show the borderline delusion that people have with regards to the sport of CrossFit, completely ignoring supply and demand, completely ignoring the foundation, the base, the interests in the sport, and how accessible the sport is to people versus what you're seeing games athletes do on TV versus what happens at the affiliate. You can't just demand and think that you deserve certain things because you work hard.
But yeah, and that's when players start to, as professionals, and both professionals in the sense of money, but really in the sense of like dedication as much as the money, like they're just demanding more and needing more from those events because it becomes their workplace.
It's what they're doing.
It's what they're doing.
They do.
There are janitors that work way harder than I ever will that still get paid $13 an hour.
You worked really hard, Grandma.
So do washing machines.
If there's not a huge demand for what you're doing and what you're beating up your body for 8 hours a day, day in, day out, it's worth considering if you have the athletic prowess to do that somewhere else and make more money if you need to make a career out of it, if you don't have another job or whatnot when it comes to CrossFit. Right now, in order to be successful at CrossFit, you have to win the CrossFit Games or consistently win things like Wadapalooza, the CrossFit Games Rogue, take top 5 in all 3 of those, and you have to have sponsors. You have to be known. It's only a job and a full-time job for like 20 or 30 people, and maybe some other ones who are doing it who aren't making a ton of money, and most people who do it as a full-time job, unless you're somebody like Danielle Brandon or Brooke Wells, who have good-looking girls. They have a lot of followers on Instagram, a lot of endorsements. That's not specific to CrossFit. You could be a hobby horser or a frisbee golfer and be really good-looking and charismatic and vocal and visible in social media and amass a ton of followers, and you're almost more of an influencer than you are a CrossFitter in a sense. And then if you look at the guy's side, the guy who won the CrossFit Games, James Sprague, didn't even have a full-time sponsor until he got Jocko in January, I think. But I digress. The point I'm trying to make is that just because you work hard at something and you've got 100,000 followers on social media and it seems like you're at the crux at what you're doing, people seem to forget just how niche and small CrossFit is. Who are our biggest content creators? Well, I'm not going to say Craig Ritchie because he doesn't even get many views anymore and doesn't really talk about CrossFit. So I'm going to throw him out. The biggest active content creators in the space right now would be like Savan podcast, Andrew Hiller. Andrew Hiller has 60,000 followers, which in the CrossFit world, it's like, whoa. Anywhere else, that's total trash. And that's not an indictment against Hiller. Hiller does great for how niche we are. Anything else, the biggest hobby horsing, the Hiller of hobby horsing, calling people out for their hobby horse no reps and all that stuff, it probably has like 500,000 subscribers. Dude, have you guys seen these like channels that are like man eaten alive by crocodile that keep showing up on my feed? Don't judge me. They have like 10 million subscribers. Pimple popping videos, gazillion subscribers. Chiropractors cracking people. Video gaming channels, badminton channels, spelunking channels. CrossFit is so small. Go out and talk to non-CrossFitters about CrossFit. They have no idea what you're talking about and they have no interest. And even inside of CrossFit gyms, there's not a whole lot of interest in the sport. So what you're going to say, Brent, when you talk about your inspiration for professionalizing the sport and organizing the athletes to get stuff done and essentially force the hand of these organizations, which would be HQ, the CrossFit Games, WFP, whoever. You are detached from reality.
And what's interesting about tennis is when I first started the Athlete Association, I would refer to athletes forcing change for the good in the sport in the 1970s. So we look at this, we go, oh, I wish our sport was more like tennis, but you speak with the players in tennis and there's still issues. And so it's not like there's this promised land, right? Yeah. It's about setting up a foundation and a structure for continual improvement so that athletes, I mean, here it is, right? The PFAA, our vision is to see a future where athletes are competing on the world's biggest stages and they're empowered with a strong voice that can shape the trajectory of the sport and their own careers.
He has studied professional players, organizations that get things done, that look after the interests of the players in professional sports league. And in both Training Think Tanks podcast and in the Froning Mayhem podcast, he very clearly cites that he has studied tennis and golf in order to essentially get ideas or a blueprint about this.
Every sport does go through that.
Yeah.
Right? If you look we sometimes compare ourselves to tennis and golf, and it's unfair to do that in 2020, right, with those sports and where they are right now.
Yeah.
But if you look back to the 60s, most of the golf players and tennis players were in the pro shop. So they were coaching people, and then on the weekends they'd go to compete. And then eventually it kind of evolves away from that.
And he acknowledges that obviously tennis and golf in 2020s is not going to be tit for tat with CrossFit. But he says, we're talking about 1970s when this stuff happened. And I want to point out the major flaw of this, and the major flaw with everything that again comes back to the supply and demand. Brent, tennis and golf have been around for hundreds of years. The tennis boom was in the 70s. It was bigger in the 70s than it is right now. People were making over $1 million if adjusted for inflation. I mean, the winner of the tour in like 1970, I did some math, it was like $1.6 million was the highest earning tennis person. Everybody was playing tennis in the 70s. Everybody. The US Open and Wimbledon were broadcast on TV, and they were getting millions of viewers in the late 60s and in the 70s. And yes, because you're going to mention Tiger Woods, and I know exactly what you mean by that.
At the same time, the success that Tiger Woods had just as a pro probably got a lot more people to golf courses.
True.
So, there's ways to, and maybe funny enough, during the 60s and 70s was when the athlete associations helped things out. Yeah. Funny how that works. But
yes, some of this did increase tennis play. I get it. The same way that Froning and Fraser and watching those awesome battles and watching stuff at the ranch and watching the media got some people to do CrossFit. Yes. So you're going to take the angle of professionalizing the sport first as an investment in a sense, and that's going to bring people back to CrossFit. And I couldn't disagree more. This is totally different. It's not even apples to oranges. It's apples to lizards. It makes zero sense. Tennis was huge. People were making money in tennis. People were watching tennis on TV. Tennis and golf have been around for hundreds of years. Nobody knows what a toes to bar is, Brent.
Indubitably.
People don't know CrossFit movements. They don't watch CrossFit movements and say, oh, I can do that. Just think about it for a second. Anybody can golf. Anybody can play tennis. When we're talking about CrossFit, we're talking about watching people freaking pass out on the floor doing these incredible feats that we basically look at and say, oh, I could never do that.
On round number one. Wait, are you saying no, Olsen's going out really?
There's nothing relatable about it. There's nothing relatable about it. Yes, it does get people back into affiliates, but golf and tennis are totally different. Anybody can do it.
Oh, man, she does all this at the age of 90.
And yes, CrossFit is infinitely scalable, but you don't have to scale golf and tennis the same way. Yes, you've got different tee boxes, but you're not doing different movements. When we watch the CrossFit Games, we're watching ring muscle ups, we're watching pistols, we're watching all sorts of crazy new double under crossovers, triple unders, whatever. We're watching all these things that people actually can't do. Anybody at any moment can pick up a golf club and hit a golf ball and go to a driving range. Anybody at any moment can pick up a tennis ball and a tennis racket and go play tennis. They might not be good at it, but they can do it. It's not as marketable because of its high skill requirement for what we're showing you at the CrossFit Games and at the WFP and whatever else. Literally, the Battle of the Sexes in 1973 had 50 to 90 million viewers. That's 90 million worldwide and 50 million in the US. It's one of the most watched sporting events of all time. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, that makes tennis relatable to CrossFit. I'm sorry, I want CrossFit to be on ESPN. I want it to be on network TV. I want it to be on Netflix. I want everybody to watch it. I want everybody to do CrossFit. I love CrossFit. But you're delusional.
Indubitably.
It is true that Tiger Woods was worth the investment because Tiger Woods created a boom in golf. Golf was seen as sort of nerdy, something that your grandpa did and something that was boring to watch on TV. Tiger Woods shows up with Nike doing fist pumps and everybody loves golf. He got me into golf.
They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
So many people got into golf from Tiger Woods, and that means nothing for CrossFit. Because even if you do have a Froning and a Fraser rivalry, and you've got a Tia, and you've got all that going on, that's not going to make kids want to go into a CrossFit gym and do toes to bar.
Fast, you can see his tempos actually increase as we got into this last set.
And pistols and squat snatches. It's just always going to be way more niche because of its accessibility. It's the same thing with bowling. Anybody can bowl. Anybody can do frisbee golf. Anybody can hobby horse. Anybody can be a furry. Is that a sport? I just watched a video. Did you guys know Andrew Hiller did a video on furries? It says accidentally showed up at a furry convention.
So it's a furry convention? Yeah. What is that?
Furry video. And I want to point something out. He never turns the camera on him, so there's no way to definitively know that Andrew Hiller was not or is not a furry himself, a furry with a camera. Just saying. So the Tiger Woods thing doesn't work. No, we're not going to prop up the athletes and pump money into this fake supply and demand thing that is the WFP, that is the sport. It's not going to happen. People aren't going to spend money on it. It's all going to fizzle out. It's not an investment that is going to get people back to the affiliates with the type of numbers required in order to support it. Even with the CrossFit Games, the most watched event, the biggest event, the event that everybody knows about, it was Reebok and the sponsors essentially that kept it afloat. And didn't they pay? This was before my time, but didn't they actually pay ESPN to broadcast it? Even back then, it was being held by a thread of some people that believed in it, but the money was never there. The profit was never there, and I've explained why, and I know nobody wants to hear that, but if you really sit down for a moment to think about it, you know that it's true. You know that it's true. These things have been around forever and are marketable, and they got TV ratings, and they made money because there was profit in it. The fact that you are thinking about CrossFit even in the same realm as tennis and golf is absolutely off your rocker, Liver King type crazy. Respectfully. Got to respect the professor. And plus, if you say respectfully, you can say anything after that. Like, respectfully, I hope the PFAA goes away and we never hear from you again because the demands were ridiculous and you just aren't a thing anymore and disappear. I'm just kidding, Brett. Freak was that? I don't like bugs.